Hey, it's been a little bit since I've been on here. I got sick. But anyway, back around, and I thought I have some stuff to talk about here probably later today about 180 Fit and some awesome things are coming. But before that, I want to talk to you guys. I've been listening to a lot of Brene Brown stuff, and I don't know if you know her, but she's just this amazing woman. Talks about shame and vulnerability and like studies it and really puts things in perspective for us. And I just recently got in a second round of, I actually listen to books on Audible because I like to use that time when I'm working other stuff to actually like listen to the books and stuff. So this one is The Call to Courage. And I went and made some notes this last time about it. You might know Brene Brown from her Netflix special called the Brene Brown, The Call to Courage. If you haven't watched it, I encourage you to do so, where she discusses to choose courage over comfort in a time and culture of fear and uncertainty. And she summarized the value of courage and vulnerability at the beginning of her special and says the key to wholehearted living is vulnerability. You measure courage by how vulnerable you are. And she starts every day by putting her feet on the floor and saying, today I will choose courage over comfort. I can't make any promises for tomorrow, but today I choose to be brave. And according to Dr. Brown, research, choosing courage and vulnerability opens you up to love, joy, belonging, and brings us closer to what she calls wholehearted living. And you know me, I'm all about being authentic and real and wholehearted. And so, and there's a quote really like that there's a little something she mentions. It says, it changes the kind of partner, parent, professional we are when we live brave and authentic lives. So I kind of put some tips from her, here are a few tips from her talk on how to answer the call to courage in our lives. And I thought I'd start there and then kind of go into next video. It's like a little bit more of like the next one. So first, is to be intentional about who you accept feedback from. I thought that was really good because it's easy to accept feedback from like anybody, right? So Dr. Brown tells a story about her first TED Talk was posted and she realized it was becoming a hit. And her husband warned her not to read the comments. So she naturally waited until her husband left. And then she read them all. And of course, it led her into this spiral. Because people are cruel out there, right? I mean, anyone who posts anything out there knows that. And so, she's like, I need peanut butter in Downtown Abbey. And so she watched it for 7 hours. And then Googled the actors, what it costs to go to like England, and eventually looks at the president of the U.S. during Downtown Abbey, like totally putting off, like, isn't it so funny? It's so, I mean, I can totally relate. And she clicked on a link of, she found out it was Theodore Roosevelt, and so she clicks on this link, and she comes up this quote, okay? And this quote kind of is the premise for all her work and stuff. So it's not the critic who counts, nor the man who points out the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, who at best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and at worst, if he fails, at least he fails while daring greatly. And Dr. Brown, she mentioned there was life before that quote and life after that quote. And it's like everything crystallized for it, and what it meant to be in the arena. Vulnerability is not about losing, it's about showing up when you can't control the outcome. Says, and she explains that we're hardwired to care about what other people think of us, but we need to be intentional about who we accept the feedback from. So if I think about, like, I could, people give me feedback. I'm always wanting feedback, but sometimes it's not, we need to be choosy about it because it's not always the feedback that's coming from other people might not. One, they might not have the knowledge to give you feedback. Two, let's face it, some people just have alternative motives. So, and I like the way that she puts it. She explains, after reading the Roosevelt quote, Brown continued, if you're not in the arena getting your ass kicked and rejected, I'm not interested in your feedback about my work. The only people Brown seeks feedback from are the people who love her but are honest with her. People who love you in spite of your imperfection and vulnerability, but because of it. So people who love you not in spite of your imperfection and vulnerability, but because of it. And then, secondly, another note to be put on there is belong to yourself first. So vulnerability is the birthplace of true belonging. We're hardwired for belonging, right? Wanting other people to love us, to see us. I know when I feel that way. Like, I just want someone to love me and just to see me for me and accept me for me. And so, she goes on to say that we cannot be vulnerable and not be ourselves. Then, belonging is trying to fit in. So the opposite of belonging is fitting in. Fitting in is assassinating, right, to ourselves. And here's what I should say. B, here's what I shouldn't say. Here's what I should avoid talking about. Here's what I should address, on and on. So speaking your truth, telling your story, and never betraying yourself for other people. True belonging doesn't require us to change who we are. It requires you to be who you are. I like that. So true belonging doesn't require us to change who we are. It requires us to be who we are. And that's vulnerable. The next is gratitude. She describes joy as the most vulnerable emotion because most people hedge when they begin to feel it. In the midst of joy, we dress rehearse trauma. Joy becomes foreboding, she says. As she researched variables, everyone who can lean into joy and not dress rehearse, they all equally share gratitude. So she spoke of people who lived with all of these experiences like mass shootings, lots of children, and hoping to understand people who could show up in a compassionate way and comment. And a very common response was like, hey, how can I show up for you when you have those losses? And they would say, when you are grateful for what you have, I understand that you understand the magnitude of what I've lost. And that's so powerful. Like, a lot of times we're so scared to actually say, talk about something that we have that someone else has lost. We show appreciation for it. It demonstrates to them that we know the magnitude they've of what they've lost. And then embrace discomfort. So vulnerability manifests itself in the workplace and how important it is to developing inclusivity, equity, and diversity. So all of the organizations she works with tell her they're uncomfortable having these conversations because they don't know how to have them. They're worried they will say the wrong thing and that it will be taken wrong and people will make these assumptions, on and on, right? I understand, like, I can see that side. But she combats that with deny the conversations because they make you uncomfortable is the definition of privilege. Your comfort is not the center of the discussion. That is not how this works. Of course, you're going to get your ass handed to you on these conversations. It's not a question of whether you have a bias or not. It's a question of how many and how bad and how deep. She said, we have to be able to choose courage over comfort. We have to be able to say, look, I don't know if I'm going to nail this, but I'm going to try because I know what I'm sure as hell not going to do is stay quiet. So even if it's, there's no excuse not to. And so, in other words, okay, and then come off the blocks. And this is the last one. She tells the story of her daughter having to do this junior swim meet as a actually one that she doesn't want to do. And so she was thinking about scratching and stuff, and Dr. Brown told her daughter no. She said, I'm never going to win the race. Brown said, you will never win the race, but maybe winning for you is getting off the block and getting wet. And that day the race came, her daughter shows up for the heat, and it was ugly, and she was so behind, and she was crying and stuff. But when she got to her mom, she said, she looked down and said, but I was brave, and I won. And so to summarize that story, Brown says, vulnerability is hard and it's scary and it feels dangerous, but it's not as hard or scary or dangerous as getting to the end of our lives and having to ask ourselves, what if we would have shown up? What if I would have said, I love you? What if I would have come off the blocks? Show up, be seen, answer the call to courage, and come off the blocks because you're worth it and you're worth being brave. I thought that was all awesome. So there's tidbits for you. Part 2 coming soon.